Good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. You know, one of the things that is very difficult when you're talking to people that, you want to have a meaningful conversation with, you really want to break out of the box and demonstrate to them some very, very profound information. It can be extremely tricky when people don't come to the table with the same backing knowledge. And one of the most frustrating things is to be in that conversation with them and try to take it to the next level. And you've got so much background, so much information that you've got to go through just to get them to an even footing with you. And this is not to say that you're smarter than them. This is not to say that you're better than them. It's just to say that they have an incomplete picture. And when you're trying to present something very, very important, you can't have that conversation if they don't either A, accept that you know what you're talking about for this area that they don't know, B, have incredible amounts of time at your disposal to explain your back history, or C, somehow or another come up with a Cliff Notes version that they'll accept so that you guys can get to equal footing so you can explain this bigger problem. And I think one of the most important ones right now, especially, you look at a presidential election and you look at the candidates that are up there. And let's be fair, most people, they're not deep thinkers. They're not going into this stuff with some deep game plan as to why they like Elizabeth Warren or why they like Bernie Sanders or why they like Tulsi. I mean, they latch on to a buzzword here or a buzzword there, but in reality, they're about thimble deep. They're not digging into this stuff. Now, there are a few out there that do, but most, they have no interest, they have no desire, and they put no effort in. So as you're trying to present these deeper truths, it's like, if your wife doesn't enjoy sports and you're trying to explain to her a play that your football team ran or, some strategy with a double switch in baseball or something like that, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're just not going to care. And that's that. It's the same way, I'm sure you can come up with a million scenarios where a woman has something they find very interesting and their man just sits there doe-eyed, has no idea what the hell they're talking about. They got to have an interest to even understand it. Most people, unfortunately, once you start getting into the details of things, they've already checked out. They have no interest. So this presents a very, very serious problem here, right? And you look, and let's be real clear. For the last 40 plus years, we have been beaten over the head with a neoliberal stick. Both the Republicans, the Democrats, the media, our colleges, everyone has presented all the information that we are being exposed to through the lens of neoliberalism. And that's it. There is nothing outside of neoliberalism within those spheres that is quote unquote an acceptable position to take. So that means you got to go outside of those domains that have won their battle, won their station through violence and through all sorts of other oppressive techniques, but they have nonetheless become the word, the law of the land, the narrative of the land. And so when we're sitting here evaluating candidates and the mainstream media says, well, of course Elizabeth Warren is progressive, or they say, of course Bernie Sanders is a radical socialist, or they say, of course Tulsi Gabbard is the greatest thing ever on war, or something like that. Right there, you have to do your homework and you have to dig deeper if you care to actually be informed. And so what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences in the candidates and how they approach problems and what the definition of neoliberal is and how you look at progressive and to be able to truly understand some of the key differentiators. Okay. So let's take a look at Bernie Sanders to start with. Bernie Sanders has put forward a Green New Deal. Within that Green New Deal, Bernie Sanders is advancing a federal job guarantee. Now, that federal job guarantee is not looking to markets to create those jobs. It's not going out to these private entities and trying to get them to hire people. Now, what he's doing is creating a public option. In other words, government jobs in the local communities, administered by the local communities, but paid for at the federal level. And when Bernie Sanders says that he is going to get rid of student debt, he's not looking at selling some green energy or something like that to pay for student debt. It's just flat out getting rid of student debt. And when it comes to healthcare, he's not looking at creating markets and more competition. He's talking about government paid healthcare. Insurance, mind you, not healthcare, but insurance. Medicare for all is not healthcare, it's health insurance, but it's single payer, and it takes the profit motive out of this. In other words, we the people, we go to the doctor and we have our fee that we pay. If the prices go up, the prices go down. The government covers those overruns. We don't absorb that. So in that case, once again, you're looking at the government doing it. But you look at Elizabeth Warren. What's the difference there? Well, Elizabeth Warren is not advancing a Green New Deal. And the Green New Deals that she talks about are typically in the form of creating markets. She's looking at funding these green initiatives by selling green energy around the world. In other words, she doesn't realize that the United States government can pay for it, doesn't need to finance it with other people's pieces of paper. So she's looking at creating markets. Bernie Sanders is looking at the government doing this. Liz Warren is looking at fattening Wall Street, providing Wall Street solutions, providing market-based solutions. Bernie Sanders is taking a decidedly progressive stance. Elizabeth Warren, by propping up markets and trying to sell green energy around the world to finance her plans, is decidedly neoliberal. Now, what does that mean? There's no cut down there. If you're a neoliberal, you love a neoliberal. If neoliberalism is what you support, then Elizabeth Warren will be your gal. If you're a progressive, you probably would not support Elizabeth Warren if you knew what the word neoliberal meant. Because it means pushing everything out to capitalism. It means pushing it out to markets to decide how to best do things. It means trying to pretend the nation is broke and has to fund these programs by selling stuff around the world. Bernie Sanders is not making such a claim. He's saying the government can afford to do this just like they bomb the hell out of the world. We don't need to sell green energy to afford to survive climate crisis. Do you understand how vital it is to understand the difference between market-based solutions, aka expanding capitalism, and a government-based approach? The government-based approach allows those companies that are selling these products and services to still make money. It's not like you're somehow or another robbing these companies of money. But what you're doing is you're taking away the risk for the regular people who cannot absorb shocks in the economy. Elizabeth Warren is putting things into the private sector, which by definition puts a profit motive in there. And by having a profit motive, that means that serving the people is not necessarily their first priority. First priority of private sector businesses is to maximize shareholder value, which usually means reduction in services, cuts to employment, you name it. Finding a cheaper piece part, finding a cheaper whatever. Bottom line is that one pits people against each other, because that's what capitalism does. It's a neoliberal strategy that she's embarking upon. And the progressive strategy is to take away that risk from the people, so that if you have cancer, you're not rolling the dice to find out if you're going to be bankrupt. This is extremely important that we understand the difference between a neoliberal who advances market-based solutions and a progressive who recognizes the power of the purse of the federal government and the ability for the federal government to, in fact, meet the needs of its people serving the public purpose with the public money. Huge chasm of difference between being a progressive and being a neoliberal. Something else that is decidedly neoliberal. If I give you services, in other words, as the federal government provides services, I guarantee that you can have health care. I guarantee that you can have child care. I guarantee that you have a right to housing. If I guarantee as the government that you can have those things, then it is the government's responsibility to absorb changes and flux in costs. Since the government neither has dollars nor doesn't have dollars, it really doesn't matter what the cost is because the government is the price setter. And the government can buy anything that's for sale in US dollars. However, let's look at a neoliberal approach. A neoliberal approach would be something like a universal basic income. The neoliberalism of that is that they are saying, hey, private sector, we're giving the people cash to go run out and buy your products and services. If your price goes up, it's on the people to cover the losses. That means they've got to make tough choices. That means that people have to stash money in their mattress to be able to afford health care or to afford housing or to afford electricity or whatever it is that they plan on using with their UBI. However, if you take the basic needs guarantee, which would be a decidedly progressive approach, you look over there and you say, hey, all these needs will be covered by the government. And if there are changes to the cost structure for the people that are providing those services, it'll be invisible to the regular person. The government will in turn absorb those cost differentials. I think it's really important to understand this. You look at all the different things that have gone on since the savings and loan crisis in the 80s and 90s, and then you look at Bill Clinton reinventing government, and you look at how he streamlined government to the point where they kicked off welfare moms from the rolls, moms who really needed the help, but they were kicked off. They put the work requirement in, they did all these things. What they were doing was forcing people back into private sector labor. Maybe it was a good thing, maybe it was a bad thing. The point is, that's neoliberalism. And so you look at the banking sector and you look at Wall Street, who's gambling that we're going to spend money in certain ways. And this is all about Wall Street. This is all about investors. This isn't about the people. The people are not all investors. In fact, most people in this country are not investors at all. Most people in this country don't even have two nickels to rub together. So when they're creating these solutions where you're going to spend your UBI on services instead of the government buying those services for you and absorbing any cost increases, you can start to see the difference between being a progressive and being a neoliberal. There's absolutely nothing progressive about a UBI. I want you to understand this is not a cut down, although I am emphatically against a UBI for the reasons I'm stating now. But it's very important to understand why it is neoliberal. Neoliberal is always seeking a way to fatten the wallets of capital. By creating a government program that gives the people the real goods and services they need versus just the cash, you have literally eliminated the markets for the people. The people don't have to worry about shocks in the economy. They have a guarantee that those services are there. So if I give you $1,000 and the cost of those services goes up to $1,500, now what are you going to do? I want you to think about it. That's neoliberalism. Now all of a sudden you're a slave. That's a real bit of slavery there, because now you're screwed. You've been given your UBI, shut up and eat your peas. That is the neoliberal mantra. And that is the hidden truth below there that they don't talk about. Why don't they talk about it? Because neoliberalism likes to hide in plain sight. It likes to dangle a little thing in front of you to make you feel like you're getting something important, while simultaneously ensuring that you're just getting fool's gold. And the real gift is to the people, the capitalists, who are going to get your money when you buy their products and services. You're still buying products and services. The only difference is the government is the purchaser of said government services. These services are then given to the people, where they don't have a financial transaction in the mix. Does this make sense? If it does, great. It's important to understand. If it doesn't, I want you to think about this. When you evaluate the candidates who are up there, and they tell you that they can only afford to give people making less than $100,000, $50,000 worth of max total student debt relief. Number one, that's a policy founded in neoliberal bullshit, because they're still trying to keep the private sector fat and happy with these debt payments. They still want to ensure debt payments get made by the people to there. And by making people desperate for money in non-dischargeable student debt, it makes people do very, very different things with their lives. However, look at Bernie Sanders' student debt plan. It's to get rid of student debt, period. It's simple. There is no strings attached. It's the shortest bill ever. Get rid of it. Cancel it. Done. That is a decidedly progressive approach to something very important, such as eliminating student debt. However, on the flip side, Elizabeth Warren is only looking to give a max of $50,000. And only the people that are making $100,000 or less are eligible for it. More neoliberalism. More means testing. So I want you to understand this, because it's very important that when you have a conversation with someone and you're trying to establish what it means to be a neoliberal, and they reflexively tell you you're wrong, for those of you who understand neoliberalism, it will make you go absolutely bonkers to watch someone who hasn't invested the time to learn actually acting like they have a position to counter you. There's nothing worse than someone trying to peer up with you when they don't understand. Literally nothing worse than that. Because you can't have a legitimate conversation about this very vital topic. And so during the next debates, listen to the buzzwords. Listen to the way people phrase things. Listen to the focal points that they make. Once you get past the platitudes of, oh, everybody should have a job and everybody should have this, then you wait for the next line. And if the next line has something to do with our plan says that we're going to give $2,000 to each family, blah, 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 you're talking about a neoliberal solution. If you're talking about getting rid of a debt for people, you're talking about a progressive position, because they are taking away the transaction between you and a private entity. And by eliminating that, they structurally change society. They're eliminating a debt anchor on the 99% versus altering a debt anchor that still keeps people stuck paying the man. Think about what I'm saying. Put it into use. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments section. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments section. If you like the work that we're doing, please smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, follow us, support us. If you'd like, we're looking for monthly donors. You can go to our Patreon account. Please become a monthly donor. No amount's too small. And if you like podcasts, please follow us at our podcast, Macro and Cheese, www.macroandcheese.com, and you can listen to all 37 of our podcasts that we've released. We just released our 37th this morning. Anyway, my name is Steve Grumbine. I am with Real Progressives, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.